in a
Yes.
more
Ecological way.
Adoption. Yeah.
And more resilient. Yeah.
So another question, good question, from a social perspective. How long do you think until violence and unrest happens? If so, where do you feel more safe to keep your funds and your presence?
Wow, that's a good one. I would say it all depends on the communications of the leaders, right, and the measures they take. If they are too reactive for a few months, people will get worried, and I expect a lot of protests, especially in the US. It's probably the worst. Maybe let's say in the countries with a lot of social inequality, it will start there, right? But it also depends on leadership and the measures they take, and how honest they are, how open they are, how proactive they are. Anyway, it's a combination. But I expect if your Gini coefficient is in a bad place in terms of inequality, you are in trouble. Probably in the next 2-3 months. If not, yeah, like in some countries in Europe, we are able to stabilize, maybe, or in Asia, because they have a more proactive style of leadership. So I expect protests, yeah, a lot or more in the next few months. You can already see it in a small scale, right? Also in Holland with supermarkets and some tensions, but I think it will be intensified because people are stuck for too long in a lockdown situation. Yeah.
Yes.
And in the Western world, we are less obedient, let's say, in the Asian countries, right? So that's also a cultural thing.
Yeah, cultural thing. Yes. How do you see banking, cash management, banks, IMF? We live in we have a very problem of debt all over the world, right? But do you see these entities providing money and loans to countries to control this social explosion?
Well, they're doing it as we speak, right? The ECB, almost the $1 trillion, of course, in the US. The question is, does it have an impact long term, right? And for how long can you sustain this? Because we have already taken our final resolutions or measures 10 years ago, right? To lower the interest rate, we cannot go lower. So the question is, how significant will these investments be, and these institutions? The truth is, from the inside out, they acknowledge that we are, for already the last 3 years, we are in new territory. We have no clue what's going to happen, if it's still effective. It's just, yeah, for them a way. That's the only thing they can do, right? They have to do something, but they don't feel certain about the impact. You can check it out yourself if you Google these people. They acknowledge that we are in a complicated situation. I'm not saying we're going to a global reset at the end game. Could be, but we probably have to move away from monetary policy to fiscal policy, right? I think that's a necessity, and we have to sort of stabilize society by giving away money. But for how long can you do that without getting into inflation, right? So it's going to be fascinating times. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Speaking about the risk of the human species as itself, there's an interesting question from a friend in Argentina. The change is here and it's exponential, disruptive. No doubt about it, but people doesn't change this fast. What do you think we can do to make a less painful transition for people? What do you think of dataism? Are humans obsolete as a species? Are we being replaced?
Yeah, so 2 questions. Okay. So what needs to be done? First is awareness, right? We need a more massive scale up of communications, awareness, media, parenting, leaders, CEOs, us, everybody who's aware about the significance of the impact. We have to be honest, consistent, frequent communication, walking the talk, be an example, spread the word based on facts, no fake news, acknowledge that we don't know what we don't know, we are vulnerable, a lot of uncertainty, including myself. So we have to think in terms of principles of being anti-fragile and communicate these principles to all the citizens, right? Also stabilize society, don't panic too much, be rational about it, reasonable about it, give people perspective like leaders are doing right now in terms of financial dips, how to have better credits or lendings by banks or by the government, right? Like it's happening in Europe as we speak. I think that's a necessity. We have to be fluid, right? Also in terms of if you are into real estate, you have to be a little bit more human about your cash flow, right? Because in Holland, for example, some real estate owners, they postpone their rent capture, right, for a few months, stabilize society. So I think everybody has a responsibility to stabilize society, like Chinese are doing, right? So for example, Alibaba and JD, they hired 50,000 employees because they were unemployed a few weeks ago because of the crisis, the virus crisis. That's the thinking we are talking about, right? Everybody is human being. We are in this together in the same boat. And I think that's significant. And I think that's emerging, right? It's very hopeful and positive, also long term. So that's the first piece. The second piece is about dataism. I read the books by Harari, of course, fantastic. I like Sapiens the most. I think he's wrong in terms of technology and the future, because we are not just data. We are more than that. I believe in the thinking and books by and views of Roger Penrose. Consciousness is not just the brain. It's also the heart and the gut and the body, and maybe also nature and the universe. So consciousness, subjective consciousness, is not just statistics or probabilities, right? It's also about understanding something we don't understand. That's fundamental to be human. And also, we cannot rationalize our existence in just data, right? There's also intuition, right? A lot of
emotions.
Emotions, intuition. I think that's more fundamental. We don't know what it is, but there's something there. Robots don't cry. Robots don't feel enchantment. We do. So what I expect will happen is humans are best at being human. So we have to amplify our unique human capabilities relative to technology. That means imagination, creativity, curiosity, collaboration, resilience, learning to learn and unlearn, design, sense of beauty, intercultural sensitivity, contextual awareness, common sense, philosophy, history, right? Human interaction, emotional, social, spiritual intelligence, relational intelligence, physical intelligence. These become way more important over time. Let's say your right brain skill sets relative to your left brain skill set. Because your left brain is, as a metaphor, of course, is about analysis, speed, diagnostics, and memory. And technology can do that better than human beings in most cases, right, today. And this will accelerate going forward by quantum AI, for example. So we have to amplify the non-technological parts of being human, right? And I think these are significant, right? And we are in a good place.
And if we stay together, we will go over it. Yeah, I really love your comments and be encouraged at this time. Another question, you're being Dutch from Holland. What is your take on the flower industry, which also impacts developing countries' economies in South America and Africa?
Well, actually, I've worked with them for the last 7 years, the leaders of the flower industry in Holland, right? So for training. And they are impacted significantly. There's opportunity and there's downside. The downside is significant, right? Not 90%, but pretty much close. On the other hand, there's demand for flowers to stabilize society. People are gifting, right? In a lockdown situation. So it can also be an opportunity for them to a certain degree, I have to admit. Overall, it's significant impact in terms of exports to your region, South America? I don't know. I think, yeah, I think demand will be lower, let's say, on a net basis. So I don't know about the supply side in your region, but I think it's moving away from Holland to Israel and Ethiopia, maybe some in China going forward, right? So I think flower production and becomes more decentralized over time. I don't know about your region or continent. What's going on there?
Yeah, I don't know that is specific. Do you see people moving massively to warmer climates?
Well, the thing is, we are not sure yet if we are safe when the temperatures go higher. Look at, for example, the recent statistics by a worldometer in Thailand, Malaysia. It's very high temperature. Hong Kong is increasing again, right? Or Argentina, right? Or Brazil. So the answer is still unknown, right? That point. What we do know that there are some reinfections, right? In China, other places. So you can get sick for at least 2 times in some cases. We don't know what that means, but in my view, that means that we are, yeah, it's going to take longer, right, to stabilize this. That's a fact, if that's true. It seems to be the case.
Okay. What do you think has a smaller negative impact on the attitude of employees towards their companies? Limited layoffs or less company benefits?
It depends on the culture, right? It's very context sensitive, like most answers. That's what's one. What I see in Holland, for example, people are very willing, including CEOs, to give in a particular percentage of their salaries to stabilize employment for most people. So it's more a Chinese way of thinking, right? Let's say collective. So I think that's most motivating for people, where they feel part of a tribe, they feel responsibility, solidarity, by giving in as a collective, including the leaders, and sometimes even the leaders more, to give a good example, right? To motivate people. I think that's very effective, the most effective way to do it. But it depends on the culture, right? What are people being incentivized by? Maybe in the US it's different, right? They want to have more individual, KPI improvements instead of team.
Yeah, I understand. One specific question from the US. So if 40% of Americans have less than $500 in cash available to counterattack or unexpected event like this one, how do you see this socioeconomic situation there in the US?
I'm really, really, really concerned about the US. Not just Trump and of course denial at first, and in my view, it can be a better way of leadership, more proactive, more honest. But anyway, that's a side topic. I am worried there because, as you said, I think 60% of Americans have only small leeway in financial terms for next month or 2. That's it. So if there won't be a big financial injection, which seems to be the case now with Trump, then it will disintegrate. It will fragment. I expect more protests. People are buying more guns as we speak in the US, to 40 to 50% in some cases or more. That's concerning, right?
That's alarming.
That's alarming, yeah. That's alarming. But I expect there will be a lockdown, maybe today. There will be a lockdown in London announced, also in Holland probably today or this weekend. The same will apply to the US. The good news is that the US will have a more fundamental lockdown. So to stabilize society from a social, cultural, political point of view, that might be a benefit in a very bad situation. Right? So more police, they are more bold in that sense than, let's say, in Europe, to control it, the protests.
Right. Let's go to another question. Russia and Putin have been particularly quiet during this crisis. It puzzles me. What can you tell us about it?
Well, if you, there are a lot of theories around the virus, right? But my take is, I'm open for all scenarios. I'm not against conspiracy, because that's also a little bit naive in my view. But you have to be skeptical and do logical reasoning and looking for proof points. Right now, we don't know anything, right? It can be bioterrorism, it can be an accident, it can be a natural source like the bats, which I think is most likely to be the case. So it originated in China. Yeah, you can say the Russians did it, or the CIA. I don't believe that, because they also have downsides. If you look at the spread of the virus, Russia and China are mostly aligned, right? In the last few years, for different reasons. China is aligned with Iran. Iran was the second hotspot, and then Italy. So I don't see the interest or the benefits of Russia, because they have bigger enemies than, let's say, Iran, because they are working together, right, for a long time, and also with China. So I think they're just independent and trying to solve their own stuff and be prepared and be quiet. I do believe they have a long-term roadmap like China, right, to become more influential over time, not just with fake news and propaganda and manipulation, using cyber means, but also because of the Arctics, right? There's going to be a lot of new resources and strategic opportunities there. And I do know that they are quietly investing in a lot of new technologies like quantum computing and AI to have a better stance there to compete. So I don't think they have a particular role in the virus right now, except for containment. Yeah. Right. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know all the details.
We don't know.
Yeah, we don't know. I think it's very unlikely that they have started this, right? It's unlikely, in my view.
All right. This question touches something I know you and I share, which is the spiritual side, awareness, and self-connection. And the question is, do you see an opportunity for leaders to embrace mindfulness in more systematic way to copy this crisis and reach a meaningful life?
Well, the good news with any crisis, private or professional, is that you have to redefine who you are. What are your values? You have to let go of a lot of baggage and unimportant stuff. The form, you move away from form to substance to the core. What is your ikigai? What is your passion and purpose in life? Are you on the right path? Do you have to reinvent yourself? Do you have to let go of toxic relationships, organizations, whatever, traumas in your life, right, to go to the next level? So I think in that sense, it's just a mirror, right? The crisis right now is a mirror, it's a catalyst. We have to become more like a phoenix to reinvent ourselves. And that the only way to do it is to go inside first, by walking into nature, like I have done for a week in India. No bed, no shower, no food, no shoes. Meditate 5 times a day, right? That helps. But in this case, you are in a crisis. You don't have time for that. So you have different means to do that. Meditation, mindfulness, yoga, walk in the nature for one day, whatever. Just empty your head. Go out of your mind into your heart and soul to feel your intuition and make decisions based on that to a certain degree, besides data, to become a more stable and effective.
And facts. Yes, data and facts.
Yes, both. Yeah. Yeah, but also intuition, because we are in a new phase, right? So you cannot rationalize dataism. You cannot rationalize everything. You can rationalize it to a certain degree, but we are in a new environment. So yeah, you have to make also partially intuitive decisions.
Yeah. The challenge is that this is very overwhelming for everybody. We as leaders, but for everyone. So what would be the message to our teams, employees, clients, suppliers, society, communities, and people around us to maintain commitment, motivation, and energy to go on?
Yeah, first of all, it's tough also for me, right? So I saw this coming, so I was prepared. I have Slack in my house, and I did a lot of cost cutting in the business. Become anti-fragile. So be prepared, right? So then you have a more stable mindset, and so it allows you to make better decisions. Also, in terms of personal recommendations, I would say, lockdown, work from home, be consistent, avoid elderly people mostly, right? My elders, are in lockdown for at least a few months. So we help them out in terms of supplies. The way you prepare in terms of food and drinks, right? So I have a shake of curcuma and ginger and lemon and yeah, every day, right? Yeah, to stabilize your immune system, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sleep well, be quiet. Yeah, what else can you do, right? Yeah, be informed. Watch the news. Good sources. Think about your future, right? How can this be an opportunity, right? In terms of digitization. Right now, we see the emergence of digital festivals, dance festival, digital conferences globally, right? Everywhere. So there's a lot of opportunity there in terms of how can you digitize your offering today with partners, we build an ecosystem for the climate, for the pandemic, because it's a necessity, but it's also better for the planet as a whole and humanity. Less travel, better for your microbiome, less disease. So now less cost. So I think there are many opportunities in that sense. Same with restaurants in Holland, right? It's now all on demand, right? So you just order it and it comes to you. All the restaurants are closed, right? So there are opportunities as well. And of course, a lot of opportunities in online education, online healthcare, right? It's massive adoption right now in Holland, unlike the last 10 years. So I see the disruption is speeding up, right? My book, Exponential Organizations, talked about the digitization, right, of products, processes, employees to a certain degree, organization as a whole. I think that's now happening, right? So on the one hand, we see a massive reduction in spending for transformation, digital transformation, R&D, innovation, Horizon 3, 2, and 1, and our HR investments, training. But I also see some of my clients who accelerate transformation work because they need to, because they feel that this shift we are in the next few years will accelerate to a new value system in which, for example, one of my clients is in the meat business. Now, I told them in the next 10 years, 50% of your business is gone. 50%. Now we say it will be 60% or 70%, because this crisis will accelerate the migration towards plant-based alternatives, right? Or algae or stem cell-based meat or other, because people will think about this crisis in terms of the ecological and social implications, and that we need to change our frameworks and solutions and products and services going forward. It's just a cue, right? It's an omen for something more fundamental. So in that sense, in some cases, you have to amplify your own disruption if there's a necessity. If there isn't a necessity, people will lock down and they will start doing all this work again after 2-3 years, right? The transformation work.
For those who haven't read Yuri's book, Exponential Organization, I strongly recommend to do that. Why don't you share with us a snapshot of the book, Yuri, and the concepts?
Yeah. So in the book we talk about, okay, how do you deal with an exponential speed of change, right? Because of exponential technologies and what is going on in terms of organizational design. What are the requirements by millennials and Gen Z, 20 years and younger, towards their most idealized organizational model? So what we see, we have created a linear organization in the last 150 years, industrial revolution, focusing on managing scarcity. So you put a boundary around your organization. Scarcity is ownership of employees and resources, and then you have to focus on scalability, scalable efficiency as a business model or competitive advantage, right? But now we see a new kind of organization, exponential organization, in which we are able to tap into abundance increasingly and how to benefit from different exponential technologies like quantum computing, blockchain, AI, quantum AI, nanotechnology, biotechnology, sensors, IoT. How can you combine these technologies to create organizations and products which are 10x faster, more efficient, and or more effective relative to a linear industrial organization in the same vertical market? And how can you create a new organizational culture, structure, KPIs, processes, strategies, and systems that allow you to scale more rapidly, to become more exponential as an organization? It's a new breed of organization, more systemic, holistic in a new way. So we are looking at characteristics like they have a purpose to help create a better world besides making money. The purpose is leading above shareholder value in most cases. That's significant. We also see the implementation of AI or machine and deep learning in all departments and functions, not just in marketing, sales, or service, but also in HR, finance, innovation itself. So algorithms everywhere. We also see the rise of the implementation of lean startup, agile, and design thinking in all departments to do experiments, small scale, fail fast, fail often, and learning on the go continuously by most employees in your organization. We also see the rise of self-organized teams. Sometimes in some particular organizations, instead of a hierarchy, they have decentralized decision making. They also use OKRs or short feedback loops to evaluate and reward employees on a weekly basis in an open and transparent way. So not a yearly job review or evaluation, but every week job review for all your employees, like Google is doing for 100,000 employees.
So it's a constant feedback loop.
Yeah, constant feedback loops, short feedback loops, to stay agile and responsive to in an exponential quantum world. We also look at to become a platform, right? Organizations used to be pipelines. Now they are digital platforms, as we all know. That's 10 years ago. Now we move to digital ecosystems. It's basically an extension of digital platforms. So how do you become a coral reef in which you collaborate and compete, but mostly collaborate with your competitors, with startups, with universities, with the governments, different levels of analysis. So how do you create an ecosystem like now, for example, Ant Financial has done, or Ping An in China has done, or Amazon has done, or Apple to a certain degree as well. How do you build an ecosystem that allows you to get the best innovations from the outside in and compete at the ecosystem level instead of platform level, or even worse, the organization pipeline level? So because we increasingly have to compete with more stakeholders going forward because of the complexity and the dynamics of technologies and the changes in the environment. Now, look at for example, the crisis right now with the virus. If you are an ecosystem, it's easier to absorb the hits, the financial, medical, economical hits on your organization, because it's more like you have a bumper, like a bump, right? You're more fluid because you can stabilize the hits across the whole ecosystem, not just you as one organization. So you have less ownership of people and resources and more access to resources in the ecosystem, so you can distribute the hits at the ecosystem level. So there's a shift towards ecosystem thinking. There's also the dynamic that we move away from platforms to platform of platforms, right? Which will use quantum AI. Right now it's quantum simulation software, because you have quantum computing, you have artificial intelligence, you can combine both. So you can process way more data than in the past. That means you have even more network effects going forward. Think about China or US. So I think the tech platforms become more significant over time because they are the first to apply quantum AI. So it will be a centralizing, consolidating force of power in the back end, that is. But in the front end, we will see a broader ecosystem emerging. So you have to tap into the functionality of quantum AI-driven platform of platforms. Like Ping An is now a powerhouse globally. They give their functionality to different insurance companies who are themselves becoming a more digital platform, right? So that the strategic power is moving away from platforms to platform of platforms above it. And this is an opportunity, but also a risk, because you become more vulnerable, dependent on these platforms going forward. But I think we don't have a choice, right? We have to go tap into it because of the data-driven capabilities. So we move away from big data to huge data, in my view. And yeah, you have to think about where do you want to position yourself as a company. Are you going to tap into China? Are you going to tap into the US for quantum AI? Are you going to do it yourself? With some of your colleagues? These are key questions.
Right, we are about to end the conference, but I would like to ask you first a personal question and then one last question. I know you're a family man, have a wife, father of 2 kids. From a personal view, how are you handling this situation with your own family?
Well, inform them, trying to be stable and enjoy a lot of education, right? So the home education movement is now skyrocketing, and I think that's amazing, right? So it's more fun, and now I show them videos. My son of 7 years old on YouTube, and amazing websites, and National Geographic, and maybe Genius, whatever. Amazing movies, of course, Netflix, with a lot of good values there. I do a lot of watching videos myself, reading, writing finalizing my second book. So I see this opportunity, right? It's a way to stabilize, to simplify your life in a way. And in terms of business, I'm looking for more digital opportunities. I give a lot of digital keynotes right now in the next month, instead of physical keynotes or workshops. So a lot of Zoom, a lot of meetings, calls. So I think there's an opportunity there. And for me personally, I like it because I don't have to travel as much. So it's better for my health. It's better for the family. There's more engagement. We talk more in a relaxed way because it's more time, right? In a way, less travel, so that's good. So overall, I would say, you have to accept the new reality, right? It takes a long time. It won't go away for 2 months. In 2 months, right?
Accept and adapt.
Accept. And make sharp choices. Cost cutting. Look for opportunities. Walk with the punches, right? There's a lot of benefits to this, actually, if you are open for it, right? At first, I was also freaked out, like 7 weeks ago. But then you get used to it, and it's just new normal, right, for a long time. And then hopefully it will be beneficial for the planet and for us going forward. I believe that. Yeah.
So what would be your final message, takeaway message for us today, Yuri?
Well, this is a once in a lifetime experience, and it shows us who we are, right? In terms of leadership, can we be stable and create more value and help people, not just our families, but also communities, right? Locally. I think that's the key challenge going forward, right? To show the best of humanity instead of the worst.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure making this conference with you, my friend.
Likewise.
I would also
thank you, everybody.
like to leave you with my short final message. In times when we cannot control what's happening, challenge yourself to control how to face and to respond to what's happening. This is where the real power is, within. So once again, thank you all for your time. Thanks to UNO and REF, communities, IBPs, forum leaders, members, for your time, for being with us today. I hope this helped in some way. And of course, thank you to my local support team for this initiative. God bless us all and have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
Muchísimas gracias.
Oh.
Bye.
Thank you.
Gracias. Muchas gracias, Patricio.
Gracias.